What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is Leo's Nerd Talk, and today we're going to be going over my 10 worst movies of 2025. So let's get into that. Hi, my name is Leo. As I talk about movie, TV shows, or video game later, or just anything nerdy, you are in the right place. And like I said, today we are going to be ranking my 10 worst movies of 2025 that I saw. So without further ado, let's get into the ranking. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope your guys' New Year's was safe and enjoyable. I know it can be crazy out there during the New Year's times, but I hope everybody enjoyed their time. I hope everybody watched the Stranger Things thing, loved it or hated it, whatever your opinion is. I hope you guys had a good time. But with that being said, we are going to go into this ranking. This is going to be my 10 least favorite movies of 2025. Now, I didn't watch as many movies as I would have wanted to, like I did the previous year. There was a lot of things going on in my personal life that really restricting me from going to the movies as often as I typically would do. So a lot of these movies are not like some of the worst because I didn't watch every single movie or try to watch as many movies as possible. So there's movies here that are really bottom of the barrel, and there's some that are just kind of okay. I don't like them, I don't hate them, but they're decent. But I'll give you my pros and cons on each individual one and why they are in the bottom 10 and not anything further up. With that being said, let's go ahead and get straight into this ranking. And at number 10, my least favorite movie of 2025 is going to be Fear Street Prom Queen. Now, this movie was a huge disappointment, especially because the trilogy previously of the Fear Street franchise was honestly really good. It had a lot of good lore into it, a lot of good sequences. Definitely felt like that old school slasher vibe, old school horror movie vibe. And I just had a lot of hope for this one because it's part of the Fear Street franchise, and I thought they were going to be able to make an additional movie in this franchise that was going to be at the level, uh, if not better, at least somewhere close to the level of those Fear Street movies. And this one was just absolutely disappointing. Honestly, not memorable at all. I can't even really remember much what happened in this, but essentially you would just have this slasher that is killing off prom queen candidates. And I can't remember the motivation of them. I can't remember who the reveal was of the killer. There was now any memorable deaths. There was really no lore. It just felt very, very basic. Really nothing to really write home about. By the end of it, it just really was a disappointing movie and it just wasn't memorable at all. And that's why it is at my bottom of 2025. But coming at number 9 of the bottom of my list will be Push. Now, I know this is probably not a movie that many people saw, but this was a new movie that came out, I believe, on Amazon Prime or like on Shudder, I think it was. And essentially, this is just a movie about this woman who is kind of like a real estate agent, and she's trying to sell this very secluded house. And this person that comes to the open house is someone who is trying to kill her for some reason. I can't remember why, but he's trying to kill her. And it's called Push because she is pregnant during this time. So she ends up kind of going into labor midway through the movie. And this movie was the only like redeeming quality of this movie is that it was very tense. This having this pregnant aspect to it was actually a very interesting thing, especially because you do have like that ticking time clock because she goes into labor that she needs to get out of the situation as safe and as quickly as possible. So I thought that element of it was actually pretty good and really intense, but everything surrounding it was just really not good at all. I just didn't really enjoy much of what was really happening. The killer's motivation, again, not memorable. I don't remember why he's trying to do this. Performances I didn't think were that great. And ultimately, again, a story that just was lackluster. It didn't really lead anything and didn't really feel satisfying by the end of it. Just having some decent intense moments here and there. There obviously wasn't really any kills. There's like one person that gets killed throughout this entire movie, and for being a slasher kind of thriller, kind of home invasion in a sense, the it just ended up being very generic and very boring with a little bit of twist of that pregnancy, but other than that, just not memorable at all. But coming in my number 8 is going to be The Great Flood. I believe this was a Netflix movie. It was a Korean movie. And it was another movie that was very interesting for the concept of it. Essentially, just the world is essentially ending, and this because of this ginormous flood, the polar ice caps are melting, so the entire world is starting to get flooded, and they're trying to save humanity. And there's this scientist that figured out a way to make this artificial intelligence to kind of help the human race kind of prevail amongst the world ending. And it was really interesting. It was very intense. I think it had some pretty decent performances. I always typically really enjoy a good disaster movie, so I thought this one was fun for like the first like 30 to 40 minutes of it, where it was about the flood and trying to escape and getting out of the situation and moving through this high-rise building and all the explosions and the tsunamis that were coming through and the intensity and trying to save, the main character is trying to save her son and her trauma with, previous flood or previously her being stuck underwater and her having to deal with that. I thought this was generally actually a very good little disaster movie. I was actually really enjoying myself until it goes full like trying to be interstellar sci-fi AI type thing, simulator situation type thing, or the last like hour and a half is this main character essentially reliving the flood over and over and over and over again until she can figure out how to properly escape. And until she can do that, the AI programming can finally be processed to save the human race. And at first that was pretty interesting. I don't think that that concept is what made this movie bad. It was just how much they stretched that concept where I was like, okay, we've done this already. Like, will you see the same situation because they're running the simulator over and over again at least 20, 30 times? It becomes so repetitive, so annoying. By the end of it, you don't even care anymore. You don't care if they end up actually figuring out how to escape, if they actually figure out how to escape the simulator, how to, kickstart this AI to, save the human race. By the end of it, I just didn't care anymore. I wanted to shut it off, but I was already so far into it where I was like, let me just finish this. Let's see how this ends because, I might as well watch it and put it into my rankings of the end of the year ranking and stuff like that. And by the end of it, I just didn't care. It was very disappointing, which when it had such a strong start, it just flopped the ending. And another movie that, again, something I would never really watch. Not that it isn't memorable because I still remember everything that pretty much happened in this one. So this one is probably one that I can really actually discuss and talk about all the twists and turns that they go for. But by the end of it, it just really was a lackluster ending, and I really did not care of the end result of her trying to escape the simulator and essentially re-jump starting the human race. Now, everything from here on up, I don't think was a completely awful movie. There was just things that just didn't work about it, and it was just disappointing. But there were still a lot of things of it that I did enjoy, but overall, it just didn't work. So, when it comes to that, coming at my number seven is going to be Honey Don't. Now, I was actually very excited for this movie. This was with Margot Qualley. You have like Chris Evans, and essentially, this is Margot Qualley. She's like an investigator, and she's investigating murders that are connected to this church that Chris Evans is involved in. And I thought like the style of it was very, very nice. It had a great direction. I think it was shot very nice. It was very interesting, and it had such a unique vibe to it that I really, really enjoyed. But I think the overall like story of it didn't really land for me. There was a lot of interesting plot points, a lot of interesting things going on, especially with Mark Qualley and I can't think of her name right now, but Aubrey Plaza. With Aubrey Plaza, their like little relationship between them two, I thought was very interesting. The reveals towards the end, I thought was interesting as well. But as an overall package, there was just something about it that I just didn't really enjoy fully, and it just didn't fully connect or landed for me. And it was like a fun movie. Like I didn't hate it. Like there was some good, comedic moments. I thought Chris Evans did a fantastic job in it. Mark Qualley did a fantastic job in it. It just had a very unique style to it. But as a whole package, it just wasn't what I wanted out of this movie or what I really expected, which is a little bit unfortunate because it did look like something that would have been, a best movie of the year for what the trailers kind of showed because of how unique and interesting it looked. But again, it just ended up being very disappointing and not exactly what I wanted from this movie, and a story that just felt like it was all over the place and a pretty big jumble mess and didn't really know exactly what it was trying to go for. So, Honey Don't, unfortunately, didn't really make the cut in terms of some of my favorite movies of the year. And another movie that I enjoyed but didn't really land the plane fully, coming to my number six, we have Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Now, to be perfectly clear, I actually had a very fun time in the movie theaters watching this. I tried to switch my brain off. This is definitely a turn your brain off, just enjoy what's going on the screen. But by the end of it, I think what really, really brought this movie down significantly is the way they ended this movie, where you have a final battle between all the different animatronics that was extremely boring, a very easy just rip off the head of the animatronics and okay, call it a day. So that was very lackluster. There was no excitement towards the final battle. And then they leave you off with a cliffhanger that was just so just terrible. Like the I would thought we were ready to go into the real final battle. Like the final battle between the animatronics, I thought that was kind of like a little setup. And then they set something up for the ending. And I was, oh, okay, cool. Now we're going into what's really going to happen. We're going to go to the real final battle. We're going to have a satisfying ending. And then the credits roll. And you're just left there like, what the absolute fuck? How can you end it like that? And I think just that simple ending, the way they left that cliffhanger, really dropped it off because the rest of the movie was fun. It's not anything great. The original Five Nights at Freddy's movie I thought was really fun. This one was, I thought, very enjoyable as well. It introduced a lot of new like animatronics and lore from the video games that I thought was very interesting. You also have Matthew Little's character that I thought was kind of useless in this one. That we don't really learn too much from him. You also have uh, Skeet, who I thought also was pretty much useless. He was kind of more of a marketing tool to kind of show that, oh, Matthew Lillard and Skeet are back together in a movie. Just like they were in the original Scream, but his character was pretty much pointless. Was in the movie for maybe 3 minutes. So there was a lot of things that felt like this movie didn't really expand upon and became kind of useless, but overall was still kind of fun and entertaining. And then you also do have just an ending that was just absolutely awful. Coming in my number five, we have Megan 2.0. And I was actually kind of excited for this one because the trailer seemed very wacky and it's a ginormous switch in genre where we go from horror to just straight up action comedy. And I thought that could have been a very fun concept for the Megan franchise. I wish they would have stuck with the horror genre, but overall, again, this movie wasn't terrible. I thought it was very fun, a very turn off your brain type of movie where you could really enjoy yourself. I can see myself watching this movie and still having a pretty good time with it. But I just think overall, as a concept, switching the genres, it didn't really fully work. I do really wish they stuck with that horror element, whether Megan became the protagonist, kind of like a Terminator style, where, the Arnold Schwarzenegger becomes a protagonist, and there's another animatronic that would have been um, the main threat and still kind of kept that horror sci-fi element. I thought that would have worked a lot better versus, Megan just being like a Mission Impossible animatronic or AI robot, breaking into this facilities and just being an action hero, which again, it was still fun. You can still enjoy yourself, but overall, I don't think this had the staying power as the original Megan. And I think they tried, so hard to kind of relive that fame that the original Megan had. And they did too much where it just came off a little bit cringy and also came off just a little bit lackluster, and it didn't, again, just didn't have that staying power as the original Megan. And it just seems like this movie kind of killed the franchise, where I think if they would have stuck with that horror genre, it could have continued to elevate. But overall, again, a fun movie, but just not executed properly. And I think they kind of made a bad decision going this route. But coming to my number four, we have The Smashing Machine, a movie that I was actually genuinely very excited for, especially because we have one of the Safdie brothers directing this movie. And Safdie brothers is one half of the Uncut Gems movie, which I adore. And this movie seemed very interesting. I liked seeing that The Rock was trying to go into a more serious role and stop trying to be just a big brooding action hero like he has been for the past 10 years. And I thought it was interesting. It wasn't terrible, but overall, I just didn't like the direction they went with it. Obviously, I don't know the story of this wrestler. I thought it was very interesting. I thought performances were absolutely amazing. I think The Rock did actually a fantastic job. Emily Blunt did a fantastic job. Everybody around them did a very fantastic job in terms of performance. I thought the movie was shot very beautifully, but there wasn't enough here. I felt like there were so many things that were rushed past. Like I can't remember his name, but the character The Rock is playing, we pass by his, his addiction or his marriage, and certain sequences in his life just felt super rushed, and we focused on other things that didn't really feel like they mattered. And by the end of it, it just felt like we didn't learn much. We didn't learn much about this character, about this person, about his story, of his journey. And it just felt like it just was a big jumble mess. And the Safdie, I forget what his name, but one of the Safdie brothers didn't know what direction he wanted to go. There were so many things that he wanted to pull from this person's life, and just kind of threw them all in and didn't know what to really focus on because everything felt rushed. Nothing felt fleshed out. We never really felt connected to this character. This character was just kind of something that a person that you didn't really kind of admire, or didn't really feel yourself connecting to them, or didn't really care for them, because he was just a very bad person. And he was a bad person while not being charming, like something like an Amari Supreme, where he's a complete asshole, but he's still charming. This character just felt flat, and we didn't learn about much about him. There was no redeeming qualities about him. And overall, while the movie was shot beautifully, great performances, it just was very, very disappointing. And another very disappointing movie, coming in my number three, we have Wicked for Good. Now, when the first Wicked came out, I wasn't really expecting much from that film, but I came out absolutely loving it. And I really, really enjoyed that first Wicked movie. And I was very, very excited for this one, because everybody told me, if you like that first Wicked movie, you are going to love Wicked for Good, because the finale of the play is some of the best things ever. Everybody's telling me, Wicked for Good, that is the Avengers Endgame for theater kids, theater people. And so I was very, very excited to see what this story kind of entailed. And it was just disappointing. It was very visually beautiful. There was a lot of great sequences. It wasn't a terrible movie. There was great sequences, but overall, it just felt off-putting. It didn't feel like what you would expect from a Wizard of Oz universe. It just felt different. And there was a lot of cool reveals, like the Tin Man reveal, like who the Tin Man was, who the Cowardly Lion is, who the Scarecrow was. Like all that stuff was really cool, seeing all these different cameos from the Wizard of Oz. But I think the Wicked Witch story kind of fell flat. You have um like Galinda's story as well, that also felt flat. I didn't really feel like they elevated her character. It just was ultimately disappointing. I can't really pinpoint what it was about it, but as I was watching the movie, I just didn't really enjoy it. And I thought they also tried to put some comedy into it that really didn't fit the scenario of what was really going on. Ultimately, I think it just, whatever the play is, I don't know how good the play is. I've never seen the play, but I don't think they adapted the play properly, because I saw a lot of people that loved Wicked and that loved the play also really complaining that this movie didn't really live up to what the play is or what the story is. So that is very unfortunate, because I was a huge supporter of that first Wicked movie, and this one really just disappointed me, where I was extremely excited. And that could also be me going in with a lot of high expectations, because of how many people told me how great the second half of the play would be. And again, just very disappointing, underwhelming. Good little sequences, good cameos from Wizard of Oz characters, but overall, I would prefer to just watch the first Wicked movie, because that one was very much a better film. But coming to my number two, we have Jurassic World Rebirth. And again, another movie that I actually very much enjoy. I thought this was a good little addition to the Jurassic World franchise. Really fun, intense sequences, beautiful CGI. The dinosaurs looked, amazing, really, like really, really good film filmography, really, really good digital effects. You had really great tense sequences, especially like that boat sequence in the river with the T-Rex. One of the best dinosaur sequences ever, in my opinion. Overall, the performances amongst all the actors, kind of didn't really care for anybody. There was really no character that I really cared about. There was a lot of annoying characters. There was a lot of characters that just felt very stiff and emotionless. So all like the performances, to me, that is probably where this movie really, really kind of fell off, because all the dinosaur stuff was very fun. Also, I thought the way this movie was set up was really ridiculous and stupid. How this, where they have this, what do they call it? The R Rex or the D Rex, whatever it's called. how it escaped because a scientist was eating a candy and the wrapper got into the security system and the whole security system shut down. Like that just sounds ridiculous. That one candy wrapper shut down this entire security system for the D-Rex to escape. That is absolutely stupid. I didn't really care for the D-Rex at all. It was a cool design, but I really wish we just would stick back to straight up dinosaurs. You know, the one from the original Jurassic World, that was a cool little design because that was a much more closer to a dinosaur. This one just felt like a ginormous kaiju alien, whatever thing it was. So I thought that was kind of dumb as well. But overall, I think it was a fun movie. Really good dinosaur sequences with a bunch of characters that just felt useless and I didn't really care about. And, you know, it just felt like there was a lot of conveniences in this movie as well. So overall, it was fun. I think a good addition to the Jurassic World franchise, probably the second best of the Jurassic World stuff, not Jurassic Park, because obviously the first one is the best one. But in terms of the Jurassic World part portion of this franchise, I think this might be the second best after the first Jurassic World. So overall, fun, but again, not a movie that I really particularly care about. But coming at my number one, my personal favorite of the worst movies is Him, a movie that I was very excited for. The trailer sold me so much, where you have this person going to this training camp and it was very cultish and demonic. And how much are you willing to sacrifice to become the best? You know, it was a very, very unique concept. And I thought the movie was shot beautifully, really great imagery, some really good performances. Everything just felt very, very good. I thought this movie was actually really good. Where it really falls off for me is the repetitiveness of this movie and also the ultimate conclusion of it, where you have our main character here who seemingly is trying to sacrifice everything to be the best football player ever, but you ultimately find out that he doesn't really care about football, and that just felt really weird and strange. You know, there wasn't really a lot of football training sequences, and I thought some of those sequences were some of the best, where they get so brutal with, you know, people getting concussions, or they're using the football throwing machine to hit someone, so every time he fails his teammates are physically getting hurt. I thought all those sequences were done very, very well. I thought performances were done very well, but it started getting to a point where it was very repetitive, like wash, rinse, repeat, and just having these like demonic imageries and visions and things like that, where it didn't really lead to anything. And you again have a conclusion where it didn't really lead to anything. It was kind of like that's it. That's where we're gonna end off at. And it was a little unfortunate because I was very excited for this movie and I thought this movie could have been amazing, but the execution of it was a little lackluster. And I think they really tried to get a little too smart with it, where it ended up kind of being confusing and it just wasn't satisfying in all the metaphors and imagery and demonic things they were trying to show. That kind of was over convoluting the main thing of sacrificing and trying to be the best and the whole football stuff. It just kind of felt like it was a big jumbled mess and they didn't know if they wanted to go in which direction. They try to mix everything together. And while it was a beautifully shot movie, beautifully performed movie, great film overall in terms of technical quality, I think the way they executed the story just felt like it fell flat on his face, unfortunately. But that is going to be it for this one, guys. Let me know what you guys think about my bottom 10 of the year. Obviously, this is just my opinion, my ranking. Let me know what you guys think about your bottom 10 of the year. I'd love to hear all you guys' thoughts if you guys are very similar to mine or if you guys have complete opposite opinions of me, because some of these movies could be some of your favorite movies of the year. Who knows? But again, if you guys like time with a movie, TV show, video game later, or just anything nerdy, you are in the right place. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you.